We're back. Apologies, folks. We had some technical difficulties here at CoinDesk TV, the perils of live television. But nevertheless, without further ado, we have our first guest who famously earned the nickname Crypto Dad after telling the U.S. Senate Banking Committee that, in his view, do no harm is the right overarching approach to the blockchain space. Please join me in welcoming former CFTC Chairman Chris Giancarlo, now Senior Counsel at Wilkie Farr and Gallagher. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Christine. Good to be with you. Happy Chinese New Year.
Happy Chinese New Year to you. Yes, thanks for joining us this morning. So, getting right into it, the G7 is meeting today, and they're talking about central bank digital currencies. Will be on the table. So what kind of coordination should there be among G7 nations in creating a CBDC? How should it be programmed?
Yeah, so interoperability amongst current digital currencies will be critically important going forward, and that's certainly work that the G7 can do. You know, each economic nation, each economic zone comes at this with different imperatives, but there's a number in common you can see. Certainly, what's driving, I think, some of the initial government interest in central bank digital currency was data. I think it was unquestionably a big driver for China's development of its digital yuan. The thought that data, financial transaction would be captured by private as opposed to the state entity was a big concern for them. And even here in the United States, I think the reaction to the proposed launch of Libra drove the U.S. government and a number of policymakers to be very concerned about data capture of financial transactions. But whether it's data capture, whether it's financial inclusion, whether it's modernizing core wholesale market infrastructure, whether it's projection of economic power, all of these factors, I think, are causing governments and central banks around the world to step up to the challenge of digital currency, the future of money.
But do you think that there will be some sort of coordination among nations, especially with the G7 nation coming along and talking about CBDCs today?
Indeed, Christine, and it's already happening. The Bank for International Settlements, which you know is the central bank for central banks, has started an innovation lab under the leadership of Benoit Cœuré, a former colleague of mine out of the European Central Bank, a very capable individual, and they're working on common standards. And I think you certainly will see common standards, certainly amongst the developed economies, the democracies, and interoperability, even with countries that are not part of that initiative, will be critically important.
Commissioner Giancarlo, so when we look at a digital dollar, you were talking about the data. So how do we keep it from essentially spying on people and keeping it from being a tool for the government to survey its citizens or other people? How do we put in those safeguards? What kind of safeguards? What kind of checks do we have to keep government from doing that?
That is one of the essential issues to this. And, you know, I think that could be actually a differentiator for central bank digital currencies of the democracies as opposed to central bank digital currencies of autocracies. We in the United States have a long tradition of economic privacy as part of our overall understanding of the rights of the individual from the rights of government. Our Fourth Amendment to our Constitution actually limits government's invasion of personal privacy. And when we have that in our fiat money, we have an expectation of individual privacy up to a limit, because there are also societal interests in law enforcement. And so balancing the rights of the individual to economic privacy and the right to the state to appropriate law enforcement within established limits, like the subpoena power and others. Getting that balance right in the new future of the dollar is going to be, in my judgment, the key element. If we get it right, I think the dollar will remain an instrument of aspirational desire in a digital future. If we get it wrong, then the dollar will be no different than a central bank digital currency used by states that do wish to surveil their citizens' economic behavior in every aspect.
Let's talk a little bit about China for a second. Do you think the threat of the Chinese digital currency is somewhat overblown? You know, you hear people saying like this is going to transform the world order, and we know that the Chinese digital currency could have a massive effect inside China. But could you break down for us like what effect specifically it could have on Americans in the U.S. dollar? Because I think it would be helpful to understand like actually what it could do.
Yeah. I'm neither an alarmist about this, but I'm also not naive. I think the United States and I think people around the world have derived enormous benefit from the dollar as a reserve currency. And I think the concern amongst some is that the emergence of a Chinese digital currency could, over time and combined with other factors, perhaps be a challenge to the dollar's role as a global reserve currency. So what does that really mean? Well, one of the elements of a dollar as a reserve currency is that in the existing accounts-based system, there's a way to have a rough amount of know your customer KYC activities in order to control illicit finance, drug smuggling, terrorism finance, other activities around the globe. With a digital yuan, would present the opportunity to basically bypass the global bank-based system and arrange for direct payments. And therefore, the ability to use sanctions power would be diminished. Let me just give you a specific example. As China rolls out its Belt and Road Initiative, imagine 5 years from now, a large African city that relies on Chinese-built water purification system for its essential needs. Today, payments for upkeep and for supplies for that system flow through the banking system. But tomorrow, that system may be able to pay for its supplies by direct payment directly in a digital yuan payment point to point directly back through the People's Bank of China, bypassing the traditional banking system. Now, for a transaction like that, it's not of great importance. But when you get to the point of global commerce and you think about issues like perhaps financing drug trafficking and that kind of thing, it could be a major concern.
Yeah.
So what,
Commissioner Giancarlo, or former commissioner, PayPal wants to distribute CBDCs. MasterCard anticipates CBDCs. How would that work? Would you even need them? Wouldn't the Fed just do it? And sorry, CFTC chairman.
That's quite right. So I don't believe a central bank digital currency necessarily vitiates the need for payment processors, for credit cards, for banks, because they still serve essential roles. Think about a central bank digital currency as really just kind of almost like the rails in a railroad. You still need the cars, you still need the infrastructure to go on top of it. People still will need credit cards because they'll want the payment protection that comes with purchases through a credit card. They'll want short-term credit that comes with the use of a credit card. They might want the certainty that comes with it. They might want the relationship that comes with it. Banking is still a very important role to provide the services that bank traditionally provides of multiplying your money. People still need to borrow money to buy a car, to buy a house, to finance a business. And so there's still a great need for that as well. So just because we modernize the dollar from an analog form to a digital form, we don't do away with essential services in the economy that we've long relied on and will continue to long rely on into the future.
All right, last
do we
question.
have any idea?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So getting back to what happened in 2017, of course, we have to ask this. You said that part of what brought down, or at least what cooled off the hot crypto market back then, was the initiation, the CFTC approving
Bitcoin
futures. And is that what's Ether now? Correct.
Yeah, so I come out of the market side. I'm not a lifetime government person. I actually spent most of my career in the private sector, and for 14 years before going into government, I helped build the world's largest network of electronic trading markets for over-the-counter derivatives. And I understand that in markets only mature when you have the ability to not only take a view as to an increase in value, but also take a view as to a decrease in value. The ability to short a market is an essential maturization point in the development of any market. In fact, in most modern commodity markets, the price is not actually set in the spot market. It's actually set in the derivative market. That's true in oil. That's true in foreign exchange. That's true in most commodities. And that's increasingly true in the case of Bitcoin as well. We have a self-certification process at the CFTC. That is, exchanges come to us and don't ask permission to launch a new derivative product. They certify to us that that product meets standards set by the CFTC, and provided there's no major disagreement with that, they go forward. We were approached in 2017 by two of our licensed exchanges, Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board Options Exchange, about the launch of Bitcoin futures. And the point I've made repeatedly is we recognize that this was actually a critical juncture in the maturization of Bitcoin. Until you had actually a derivative market, it was a relatively immature market. And so when that product was self-certified and went forward, it did halt for a time being what was a bubble rise in the price of Bitcoin. In fact, what it did was it brought the price of Bitcoin back in correlation to its fundamental cost of production. What had happened in the summer of 2017 is Bitcoin had broken free of those fundamentals. And the presence of a development of a Bitcoin futures allowed institutional money to come in.
Are we in a bubble now?
And I believe to this day, I believe to this day that the institutional role in Bitcoin has made it into a truly investment-grade asset class now.
But did CFTC actually view it, though, as getting too hot? And is that the same now? Do you think that there is now a more mature derivatives market, even offshore especially? Are they viewing it as hot now? Yeah. Did they view it as hot?
So first of all, regulators don't have the authority to say a market is too hot, we're going to step in and affect the price. That's not part of its jurisdiction. They do not have the power to do that. And that's not what happened in 2017. The timing of that was entirely driven by the exchanges and their customer demand, not by the regulator itself. But at the same time, regulators are students of markets. We understand the dynamics. We understand what the launch of a Bitcoin future, the effect that would have. And so as observers, we understood that dynamic.
All right. Thank you for your time, Chris, and sorry for the technical difficulties earlier on.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, that was former CFTC Chairman Chris Giancarlo. Coming up, BTC Markets Analysis with Bitwise President Teddy Fusaro. All right, so Bitcoin was trading between a new record high above 49,000, trading in between 47,000 and 48,000 yesterday. Let's see what Bitcoin is up to now. The price of Bitcoin just over $46,000 right now. It's down about 3%, so traders are taking profit. And the ETX Ether price also trading at just above $1,700 there right now. All right. Taking a look at, turning to our first guest, it's our following the markets. Please give us we're ready for a update with Teddy Fusaro, Bitwise President in San Francisco right now. Hi, Teddy.
Good morning, Christine. It's nice to be with you. Congrats on the launch of CoinDesk TV this week.
Thank you so much. Yes. So tell us about your market view right now. All-time highs yesterday. What's driving this near-term surge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, right now we have two dynamics. There's increasing adoption and there's increasing awareness. And as both of those things kind of go hand in hand, and as you see larger companies are coming into the space for various reasons, that drives both of these things together. And the more people learn about it, the more they adopt it. Because most people that you speak to who have spent time thinking about this tend to come away with a productive or optimistic view on the future of the entire asset class. And that's being accelerated really by these large, well-known companies that are jumping into the space or making announcements that they will get into the space, including Tesla and Bank of New York, Visa, and MasterCard.
Hey, Teddy, India, of course, looks like it's getting ready to ban crypto again. How many times they can do this, but how nervous is the market about it this time?
Yeah, Lawrence, great question. I think, look, there's a classic thing that happens in Bitcoin bull markets and in crypto rallies, which is that there's a propensity for either rumors of or actual steps towards large governments intervening in a negative way regarding the adoption of Bitcoin or to overregulate Bitcoin. I think on the one hand, I would like to point out that it is absolutely the case that over-regulation or government regulation that is very strong, that could halt the progress of these technologies, is a very real risk to the price of Bitcoin. So that's the first thing. The other thing I would say, though, is that it's very difficult to put toothpaste back into a tube. Everything that we're witnessing in markets right now, from a philosophical perspective, from witnessing the power of crowds, is really about the edges, the individuals, the public, taking some measure of power back from traditional authorities. And frankly, I'm just not sure how practical it is for an Indian government to attempt to do this. Like we've seen in the past, we don't know if it's true. It is classic that we hear about this during rallies. Functionally, I'm just not sure how they'd go about it.
Teddy, what do you say?
I mean, they're pushing some legislation through, and the question is whether or not is the general market outside of India looking at this with at least some concern that you have over 1 billion people who might not have access to Bitcoin down the road.
Yeah, I think that there is some concern for sure, but in terms of the market's anticipation of how they will be able to administer or carry out it, I don't think there's a lot. I think what people who are in this market are more likely to see, Lawrence, is that it's a shame that the world's biggest democracy would place themselves on the wrong side of this technological development. It's hard to stop this entire ecosystem with the momentum that it has. It would be hard for one country on its own to attempt to halt its progress.
Teddy, what can you say about decentralized finance? We're seeing that $40 billion is locked into DeFi per DeFi Pulse. What's driving this explosion, and is that what's really the next level?
I'm so glad you asked about that, Christine. One of the things that we're really excited about, and we've been spending a lot of time researching, educating on, and talking to our clients about, is this decentralized finance, DeFi, or open finance movement. It really represents, I think, the next step in what is possible with decentralized cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And it represents some of the power and promise of what this technology can bring to the market. We do think that although Bitcoin is really having a moment right now, if you will, that ultimately Ethereum is probably the story of 2021. And most of these decentralized finance protocols operate on top of the Ethereum network. And the things that are possible there are frankly fairly radical in terms of what can be done to eliminate some of the intermediaries in financial services. And when we talk about things like what we see with the GameStop phenomenon and the other types of movements that we see where the power is being pushed to the edges of society in certain ways, we're seeing that happen in this DeFi movement right now. It's something we're really excited about, paying a lot of attention to, and want to talk more about in the future.
So much
So
innovation.
Teddy, in a nutshell, you're saying Ether is a better buy than Bitcoin going forward till the end of the year.
Lawrence, I knew you'd ask that follow up. I could count on you. We don't make those price predictions, but we're really optimistic about the experimentation that we're seeing built on top of the network, whether it's borrowing and lending without using a middleman, or exchanging assets without using a centralized order book or exchange. These other tools that you can participate in are really fascinating. We encourage people to ask us if you have stuff you want to learn more about it.
All right, great, Teddy. Thank you for your insights.
What could bring Bitcoin's price to the ground? Just if there was one factor that could cause a crash this year, what would it be?
Quickly, 30 seconds.
30 seconds on that one. I think it's a little bit of what Lawrence was probing at earlier. I mean, I think it's if you have the types of regulatory developments that attempt to clamp down in a more coordinated way on the asset class, that could stall momentum. I think another thing that we think a lot about when we look at are actual technological flaws in the underlying protocols. Remember, all this technology is very new. It's experimental. It's all out there. It's transparent. And particularly when we think about the decentralized finance area of the market, a lot of this stuff is unproven and untested.
All right, Teddy, thank you for your insights.
Thanks,
all right,
Teddy.
That was Bitwise President Teddy Fusaro. Time to check in with CoinDesk regulatory reporter Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hey there, Nick.
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday.
Good morning, Nick. Let's talk a little bit about Canada for a second and this big news about ETF, and what do you think this means for the United States? Is Canada going to basically be the testing ground for this, and will this make regulators in the United States more comfortable with a US ETF?
Yeah, that's I think probably the biggest news of possibly not this week. There's been a lot this week, but it's definitely some very big news. Canada's approved its first open-ended exchange-traded fund for Bitcoin. It was approved by the Ontario Securities Commission. It does seem a positive sign for ETFs in the U.S. Bloomberg's Eric Balchunas was tweeting last night that he predicted that Canada would approve a Bitcoin ETF first, and that would lead to the U.S. approving one of its own.
Nick, what do you say?
And just moving to go ahead, Lawrence.
No, you go first. It's all right.
All right, Nick, what can you say?
Quickly moving over to a totally different part of the world. What's happening in Nigeria right now? I know you've been covering that this week. What's the latest from Nigeria?
Yeah, so after the central bank's ban on, or proposed ban on crypto, the Nigerian Senate's actually looking for more information. Yesterday, there was a Senate meeting, and a couple senators actually spoke out against the ban. They said that, crypto could be useful. They want more information. They seem to be summoning the central bank head as well as the top securities regulator to come and just talk about not only what the negative impacts are, but also what the opportunities might be using cryptocurrencies. So that's probably that does seem to be the next step. On the other hand, the Nigerian Securities Commission did announce, I believe this morning, that it would be halting any regulatory efforts in light of the central bank ban. So it's all kind of up in the air right now, and I imagine we're going to see a lot more coming out of there.
Thank you very much, Nick, for your updates. We'll definitely be tracking what's happening in Nigeria. All right, that was CoinDesk regulatory reporter Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com. Our next guest leads the U.S. arm of the largest and most used crypto exchange in the world, with almost $30 billion in daily trading volume, according to CoinMarketCap. Joining me now is Catherine Coley, CEO of Binance US in San Francisco. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Really glad to be here. Yes, Binance US has been home for America's trading, and we've got some exciting news today to share with everyone.
Ah, yes, Catherine, I saw that on your Twitter. You have some good news, and you're giving away a hoodie. Are you entering the apparel business?
A hoodie giveaway, but I'm not going to raise
Tell
it
us
up
about the hoodie. Tell us about
What's the news?
We give out our hoodies to anyone that helps us grow the community here in America, explaining crypto to friends and family, teaching people how to use trading. And one of the exciting things that we've been doing over the last year is growing into more states in the United States. So we don't operate in all 50 yet, but that's a big focus of ours for 2021. But today I'm proud to announce on the 43rd day of 2021, we're going to be entering our 43rd state, and that is going to be Washington State. So all my friends up in the Pacific Northwest, you can now be a part of Binance US.
All right, that's great news. Congratulations.
That's a cotton hoodie, right?
That's worth a hoodie.
If you're into the Egyptian quality of the thread, we can talk about that later. But I'll tell you about the quality that we're seeing on the platform. So in the first 33 days of 2021, we surpassed our volume from 2020. It's incredible to think that, but we've already done over $15 billion of trading digital assets on Binance US.
All right. Catherine, I did want to ask you, though, about XRP. Binance delisted Ripple. Are you concerned at all about other tokens, for example, BNB being considered a security?
We approached the situation with XRP as we were seeing the rest of the industry and wanted to comply with the rest of our kind of peers in this space. And we'll address each situation as it comes our way. But one thing I am excited to talk about a little bit more is the change I'm seeing in the space around the perception of women entering in the crypto space. And we've seen a couple of things that just continue to persist in the perception of women in crypto industry that I think we really should be addressing. There's some amazing mountains being moved by women in crypto, especially in the transition of crypto in America. We've seen the likes of Caitlin Long, Hester Pierce, Rachel Siegel, Catherine Coley, myself leading the charge, and Meltem as well, just educating and continuing to push forward this industry. And so I really think we need to wake up and address that.
I mean, here at CoinDesk, we definitely believe in diversity. We have, even in our show.
You know, I was left off the Twitter announcement. I had to write that it was an invisible ink.
Catherine, have you heard from the SEC at all, though, regarding this whole, question about, what is a security?
We're constantly working with all of our regulators, making sure that we have understanding of what's ahead. We've joined with the Blockchain Association to put our best efforts to make sure that regulators are informed and we're informed of what they're thinking. And our head of legal and regulatory was just elected to the board of directors for Blockchain Association. It's Christopher Robbins. I'm very proud of his efforts in Washington, D.C.
I actually have a follow-up on the woman question, because since you raised it, because I'm quite interested in your thoughts on this. You come from the finance world. How does the crypto industry compare to traditional finance in terms of women and diversity? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it about the same?
It took 200 years for a bank to be able to have a female CEO, with Jane Fraser leading the charge at Citi. And it took 3 years for me to enter this industry and become the CEO of an industry here. So I really was excited for where crypto was going to be more open-minded and led us to have opportunities, because majority we're all behind a computer right now, even more so in COVID. And so there's really, the advantages that you need to be successful are to be smart, intuitive, understand these markets and learn them just like everyone else has within the last 12 years. So that to me gave a huge advantage for us being able to bring in different voices that we've not heard and define an industry going forward.
So since we're talking about diversity, I want to bring up the whole Coinbase issue, which I'm sure you've been following. As we know, Coinbase's CEO put out a memo basically saying that it was going to be an apolitical company and certain topics were not appropriate for discussion at work, and that led to Coinbase employees leaving. What do you think about this? Was this the right thing to do? Was this appropriate? I just would love to hear your opinion on this.
It's very different from how I run our company. We prioritize our authenticity. We celebrate our diversity. It's what helps us build a product that caters to and reaches more of America today. And that to me is really important for us to be representing who we are as users, who we are as a nation going forward. Our work so far with Binance US, we're about to enter our second trading competition with HBCU schools, providing them the skill set of live trading, understanding risk management, understanding digital assets, learning more about their financial future. And I think it's really important that we arm students at a younger age with these skills, because they're going to be involved in their lives. They're going to be parts of their careers that they're going to be able to excel in. And we need to teach people earlier about this so that they're not caught off guard, unaware, or left out.
Catherine,
so do you think that memo was somewhat out of touch with just what's going on in the world right now? Would you agree with that statement?
I think that there's probably a decision that was made, and I'm glad that they make those decisions so decisive. But to me, I feel things. I see the world. It was not in a good place. We were in turmoil. We wake up and see the news looking like it was something out of a futuristic war scene, and none of that gives comfort to the world. And we're all human at the end of the day. So I kindly like to remind people, crypto might seem futuristic, crypto might seem like it's all zeros and ones, but there's people behind there, and people really matter.
We were talking during the technical difficulties about exchanges going down, and of course, with us, it was clearly the Nasdaq squirrel, as we had discussed before, the Nasdaq squirrel that ate the wires here back in '87 as well. But as far as exchanges like Binance US, when there's a lot of activity and the markets heat up, inevitably they go down. And so the question has been kind of floated out there, is whether or not these are a form of circuit breakers. That it's to the exchange's advantage to, let's say, not process as many trades during certain times. Are those kind of circuit breakers in name only, in everything but name, rather? Does that actually exist? Is that what's really going on, or is it truly technical difficulties? And if it's technical difficulties, what's being done to deal with it?
I can only comment on my own platform. I'm not really sure how the insides work at other places, but I'll tell you this. We're having a surge of users that is really unprecedented. Since December till now, we've had a 160% increase in those that are holding digital assets on our platform. What this means is we're actually breaking the banks. So the fiat rails that are helping us get users' dollars into digital assets are reaching their capacity, thus slowing us down. So oftentimes you'll see, if we go offline or turn off withdrawals, it's the other components that are critical for our infrastructure to let this happen. But a lot relies on the banks. I think about this today because Monday will be President's Day, and that's a bank holiday. So guess what? That means dollar wires aren't going to be settled on that day, which actually impacts the user quality and experience that people would have on Binance US. Whereas we'll be up 24/7 trading all through the weekend and all through Monday, because crypto never sleeps. So it is really critical that we rely on, or we enhance those features, but a lot of it does rely still on those old rails that just can't handle.
Catherine, just final question.
Speaking of dollars, I was just going to say, speaking of dollars, you have, of course, how concerned are you with stable coins other than BUSD? I'm sure you don't have any concern with that. But how concerned are you with other stable coins, such as those that their names rhyme with feather, in terms of dealing with them on your exchange, and whether or not that would you keep those when you have your own stable coin going on?
We offer a lot of stable coins because for us, it's that variety that lets people have their choice and choose their freedom path of getting into the markets the best way they see. So we've got USDC, we've got BUSD, we've got USDT, and we'll continue to bring on more stable coins as they see fit when they're brought up and built out, that we see that our users are demanding. So we take every token by a case-by-case basis if there's something that needs to be urgently looked at and what we can do to protect our users. But we really think that the more opportunities for people, lets them make those choices, not us. We don't want to be a gatekeeper.
Catherine, just final question. This week we heard that Tesla bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Was Binance involved at all?
I wish we were involved, because I don't want to know the fees that Elon paid. We have 14 times lower fees than anyone else in America. And if you're a corporation, and we're on the Michael Saylor's Bitcoin for Corporations, unfortunately, there were no women represented, but you would have saved your money and gone with us. And that's a 14 times discount for trading on Binance US than anywhere else. So I encourage, if you care about your money and you want to spend it wisely, you can stack more sats when you're buying on Binance US.
All right. Thank you very much, Catherine, and congratulations on your new announcement.
Thank you. Go Washington.
Thank you.
All right, that was Catherine Coley, Binance US CEO. Time now to check in with crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey tweeting, Jay-Z/Sean Carter and I are giving away 500 BTC to a new endowment named B Trust to fund Bitcoin development, initially focused on teams in Africa and India. It'll be set up as a blind, irrevocable trust, taking zero direction from us. We need 3 board members to start, so nice job opportunity there. Also, NYC mayoral candidate Andrew Yang tweeting that as mayor of NYC, the world financial capital, I would invest in making the city a hub for BTC and other cryptocurrencies. A recent poll found that Yang commands a solid lead in the mayoral race by more than 10 percentage points in New York. That's it for First Mover. Tomorrow you'll want to tune in for on Monday, you'll tune in for our special guests. Thank you very much. We have Rich Rosenblum, co-founder of GSR Markets, on Monday. Thank you, Emily Parker, our CoinDesk Global Macro Editor, and Lawrence Lewitinn, Markets Managing Editor. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Tweet me at Christine News. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with all about Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.